Okay guys, I'm going to walk you through a little installation. Upfitter switches on a F150. I'm going to be using the F250 upfitter switch with the F250 wiring harness. There's a wiring diagram on the internet. Service Bulletin Q117R2 shows you the wiring diagram for the upfitter switches. Essentially, we won't have to change 6 wires on this to make it work for our trucks, the F150s, because we don't have the harness built into our body. The first one we need to give it is we need to give it key on power. Second one we need to give it is cluster illumination, so a backlighting when we turn the backlight on the truck. And the third would be the 1, 5, 6, and 7 wire, which would be power for the actual upfitter switches themselves. That power we're going to tap into our fuse panel direct, because we don't actually have a place otherwise to get power for them. The last wire obviously is the ground, and the ground is pretty straightforward. It's very easy to hook up. If you buy the factory F250 relay harness, it comes with the connectors and it comes with everything already wired up, ready to go. The only thing you have to do is change those 6 wires. After that, it's pretty straightforward. There's this F150 forum, and on there I found this this service bulletin that addresses the fuse relocation for the V8 motors, the F150s with the fuel pump fuse melting and whatnot. It basically tells you how to open up the factory fuse box without completely destroying it. Very helpful for me. I'll post a link in the description. It'll be very helpful for you as well as if you can't find a truck with a scrap yard to practice on. First thing we got to do, we got to pass power into the cab, and I'm going to do that through that little rubber grommet there. Actually, very easy to find. It's right. Pretty much follow the parking brake, and it's right in, back up in there. I'll be passing through some SO cable that I'm actually going to be passing through. It's a nicer 5-conductor cable. I'll tell you why I'm using 5 conductors. This will be part of my first switch. Is going to use power right from this area, so I'm just going to run 5 conductors. It's easier that way. That rubber grommet is just right there. Very simple to do. Looks like we're going to take our power from the factory fuse panel. So the Ford Raptors, they're going to have upfitter switches installed from factory, and they're going to be using these points here as their fuses for their upfitter switches. I'm going to do the same, but as you can see, these spots only have 1 terminal. This spot has 2. So what I've done, I went to the junkyard, I pulled terminals. I'm saying right now, these things are hard to find. I pulled terminals out of a fuse panel of F150. So I have 4 of them. I'm just going to attach my wires to them, open this panel up, keep everything looking nice and factory. I'm going to start by passing this wire through. The laser road out. What you can do is there's a little nipple over there. You can cut that nipple. I'm just going to take a drill and drill right through it. This time we have our power coming through the little rubber there. So in the fuse panel, we're going to be using these terminals. Now these part numbers, I can't tell you what they are because I don't know what they are. I went to the scrapyard and pulled these out of the other Ford that was there. They just slide right in and click in. These already have the wires on them, already crimped. So these are free from the scrapyard. The alternative, you can buy a fuse kit. Up in here in Canada, though, they're charging, I think it was like $28 for the one fuse kit thing for the fuel pump relocation. And you know, if you put in 4 of them, you can do the math. It gets pretty expensive. And then on the other end of these cables here, what I'm going to do, I also got this pigtail from the scrapyard. It was $2. I got 4 nice big connectors in there, which I'm going to run the power for. And then I'll hook these up to this cable here. And then what I'm going to do is hook up the relay fuse boxes to this with the other side of the connector. So in case I ever want to get out, I can. That's not a problem. And then just inside the truck here, you can see that wire is passing through. You can see where it comes through there. Kind of goes underneath the coolant tank around the airbox. Just comes up here and it's gonna go inside that box. So this is what I did essentially to get those terminals. I went to the scrapyard. Obviously you're gonna find a lot of Fords here. Found this one, F150. Took apart the fuse. If you peel this up and back, you can see all the wires coming right through the back. Now what I did is I just looked. The other one had like a heavier gauge fuse, like a 60 amp. Flip that over, cut the wire, pull it out, and that'll give you my terminal. You can see some thicker wires there. You can flip it over, see what's there, and take the terminal out of it. So this is gonna be my first thing on the switches. It's gonna be a heater. Don't have the heater yet. Still waiting for it in the post. That just loops around over here. Got our new blades installed on the panel. Waiting for new fuses. And the cable looks pretty much like the Ford cable. Just a big mess of tape on the corrugated conduit. And it's coming out of the rubber grommet up there up front. So looks pretty good. Modify the connector because this connector doesn't exist in F150. It's for the F250. So we're going to use this connector which I got from the scrapyard. Inside there I have 4 heavy gauge and 3 light gauge. I'm using the heavy gauge for the actual upfitters and the lighter gauge pins for the illumination wire and the keyed on power wire. So it's just been soldered in and put into this corrugated conduit. It looks like what they did. So it's not a problem there. Ground wire, of course. This wire goes to the upfitter switches, and then these are the actual outfits themselves. Now that's all nice. That's ready to go inside my truck. But all I gotta do now is just fit the upfitter switches. Oh, and it's very cold. It's very, very cold. To use this fishing rod, especially a wire fishing rod, to pull my cable through. And I'm also pulling in a key on power, which I'm going to tap probably somewhere into the fuse box down there, or into one of these wires. There's a bunch of wires over there. And for the illumination wire, I made a choice to actually tap off this this module here. This blue wire, cut it. Black wire is going down through, and it's going to meet over there to the fuse box. It's also a good time to clean up these things. I can pop off the bezels and clean around those, because it's very hard to clean them when they are on. I'm just going to solder these up and hook that up over there. In order to take out the part that I'm installing the switches in, which is right here, all you got to do is take out the airbag. Not really take it out, just move it to the side. And then you can get to these 2 screws around the side of this trim. There's one there, and then I don't know, maybe I didn't have to take out the other one. Yeah, I guess I didn't. Maybe it was actually attached to this trim, but unclip the cigarette lighter. Couple tabs. This tool is your best friend for this kind of stuff. You can pry up on the airbag, pry on this. Take this over to the bench. The easiest way to get this off is just drill out these plastic rivets. Right. That comes right off. Just better pop it. So that's our trim itself. Then I had to do the upfitter switches. Now I just gotta make this. fit inside there. Yeah. And here's what it's like to take out the airbag with one of these. 3 screws underneath. They are 10 mil? 10 mil. Take your pry tool and then just like that. Just lift it up. And pull out. Now that this is out of the way and off to the side, before you go prying on this airbag, you gotta take the screws out first. Get the screws out, you gotta open up the glove box, push the clips on both sides, and then you can look up from the passenger side. You'll see three bolts, 1, 2, 3, at the back that actually hold this thing in. Take those out, and then you can start prying right away. Obviously, our switches are a lot bigger than the little tray thing that came there before. So we have to cut out some plastic. I already cut this side out. This is a piece of metal in there, so I'm going to have to cut out that side as well. The tool that I'm using to do it is the wall also tool. You can get pretty good clean cuts with this tool. And as you can see, there's not too much damage. Just a little bit of melted plastic. Pretty clean. And then certainly after you cut out that much plastic, these switches will fit inside that pocket. And I was wrong. I have to actually cut out some of that metal, but it's not too serious. Cut it out. You know, it's like pop can almost. It's what it felt like when I was cutting through it with the oscillating tool. So anyways, with that gone, we should fit in there. Not a problem now. Nice. If you don't have one of these, now is a perfect excuse to go and get one. Left-handed. Just like that. Well, that will just clean up. Not as messy as it actually looks. Switches seat fully in now. Now it's time for the glue up. Now with the trim back on, I can figure out where I have to glue this thing. Now with the switches back in there, you can screw the trim back. I use a lot of JB weld actually to secure this. Lots of JB weld. Couldn't use enough. Put the screws back in the airbag, put it back together, put the trim back on, and now you can move over to the relays. Now it's time to mount our fuse box. As you can see, we already have this connector here, which comes through the firewall. This now also has the same connector on it, so it's really now it's almost plug and play. Really, after you have these wires in there, I didn't really see any good spots to mount this, so I kind of did a bad thing. I drilled through this piece of steel here to mount this one of these screws. Cut off half the bracket. I'll show you what it looks like after. So I ran my wire over here, and that's in the passenger side glove box. And with the meter, I was just poking around to see what wires was power with the key on, and it ended up actually being this yellow wire here in this connector. So I just cut off some insulation, soldered it, put my brown wire in, The brown wire goes across to the relay set. Just want to see if the switch is actually lit up with the rest of the dash, and they do. To wrap up this F150 Upfitter switch installation project video, I'll show you guys the location of my F250 relay box, which is right underneath there, attached to this piece of steel by a screw. We have given the switch, the relay box rather, fuse power from the factory fuse box underneath the hood. We've given it keyed on power, which means that these switches will work only when the key is on. If you turn the key off, the switch is cut off as well, save your battery. We've given it illumination wire from the 4-shift gear selector, which means that when the lights are off, you can also have these switches light up so you can see them at night. It's not a problem. A great feature to have. Now you're ready to install Upfitter onto your switches. What I have installed to my number one, I have some light bars at the front, light bars at the back. That one's on a 10 amp. That one's actually not on 10 amp. That's on the 15 amp. And then I have two switches that I have to still use. And what I do is I just switch between my number one. I switch between using the heater when it's cold and my lights when it's not cold, because I don't need to run the lights too often. So there you have it. You have your switches nicely installed, good to go. Kind of looks like it does, or would have, if it came from the factory. Great location for it. All in all, it wasn't too much work per se. I did have to split it up because the first day I was working on it, it was about minus 20. It was about minus 25 or 26, something like that. It was pretty cold, pretty difficult to work in those type of conditions on this type of project. So the next day I came back and I installed the switches. And because of using the factory harness and not trying to do it yourself, everything pretty much was plug and play after I ran the power and the two wires, which were the key on power and the illumination, over to that F250 relay box.